Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Oxford University Press's webinar on the Victorian Curriculum for Humanities Years 7 to 10. And thanks for joining. First of all, we'd like to do a welcome to country. We acknowledge the Bun, Wunwurrung, Bunurong and Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I'd like to give you a quick overview of what we'll be covering in the webinar this afternoon. I'm Dorothy, and my colleague Paul will be doing the digital presentation, and we'll be hearing about the curriculum changes from our authors. So first of all, we'll be looking at those curriculum changes and some of the challenges, and then we'll be looking at the resources and the digital platform, and then going through to a quick couple of slides on price and availability. And hopefully at the end, we'll have some time to answer some questions. First of all, I'd like to introduce our recent prize-winning author, Kirk Thompson, who teaches at St Bede's College in Mentone. And welcome and congratulations, Kirk. And also our prize-winning HDAV teacher, Megan Ryan from St Bede's College, also same as Kirk, and welcome Megan and congratulations to you. And Mark Easton, some of whom you'll know, who is joining us tonight again. And Mark, since 2010, has been a consultant for Oxford University Press and has been involved in many contributions to our geography and humanities slides. So over to you.
Excellent. So Mark, Kirk and I are going to talk today about some of the changes to brand new curriculum in terms of humanities. And I guess the first question is, where did this curriculum come from in the first place? And it's been in development for a couple of years now. Lots of you probably know from your schools that English and maths has been rolled out this year, and next year humanities is going to be rolled out in completion. The curriculum it's got a lot of good changes in it, but as any curriculum does, it's got some things in there as well that I'm sure as teachers we're not 100% happy with. That's all right. I guess what I really like about it is it's got a lot more depth in it in terms of humanities, and the skills are really obvious as well. So if we have a bit of a look at the structure in terms of humanities, we've obviously got our 4 different streams. And we've got our knowledge and understanding for each one. And something that's quite new, I guess, is the skills that have been applied to the civics and citizenship, as well as the business and economic streams. Today, Mark's going to have a bit of a talk about the geography stream, because that's his area of expertise. So I'll hand over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Megan. I'm just discovering the joys of webinars because my camera's frozen and my wife's decided to start up the egg beater behind me. So if I seem to be sitting very still, it's only because my camera's frozen. So I've had the joy of working through the Victorian Curriculum 2.0 now for about 18 months since it was first released, and adapting the material we already had in our textbook, but also creating a lot of new content. And so I just want to work you through essentially that new content today, and just reassure you, I guess, that we're ready to go at Oxford. The first thing I'll point out is that on the left-hand side here is the old curriculum, and on the right-hand side is the new curriculum. And the very clever ones amongst you will notice there's actually not a great deal of change. In fact, there's none at all. The names of the geographic knowledge and understanding is unchanged from the old curriculum to the new, so that essentially the topics, the content of the course is essentially the same. And I've had teachers at other workshops and at my old school and my current school say to me, well, not much seems to be changing in geography. And I think it's because they've only looked at this page. They've only looked at the headings, if you like. And as we know with things like curriculum, the devil tends to lie in the detail, and it's in the content descriptions and the elaborations that lie below them or beneath them that the changes are really happening. You'll also notice, just before I get onto the changes in content, I'll talk about the skills a little later. The skills have been changed much more than the content has. The skills have been made much more explicit and also much, I've got to say, much more logical. It was always difficult to know where to put things. As an author, I knew there was a skill that geography students needed to have, but I never knew quite where to put them in a textbook. The new curriculum lays them out in a much more logical fashion. And as Megan and Kirk will point out later on, it's fairly similar across all of the humanities subjects. And they seem to be following, well, the VCAR seems to be following now almost a scientific method of inquiry, where students start with a big question, an idea they want to explore, and then they find out the content or the research necessary for that. They reach conclusions, they make decisions, and then they communicate those things. I've got to say those things kind of existed in the old curriculum, but they were in different places, and it was hard to get continuity. This seems to be much more logical to me. I've just been writing some material about that today, and the flow of skills is much more logical, but I'll talk about that in a sec. In terms of changes to geographic content, I've narrowed it down to these 5, and I'll just go through each of them quickly. I know you can read, but I just want to point out exactly where they are. The first is that there's a much stronger emphasis on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their place in modern Australia. In the past, it kind of sat at the beginning of the content, kind of in the overall description of what geography is, and in the cross-curricular priorities, but it's kind of been pulled out of there and made much more explicit in the content itself. And the example that I've given there is the Year 8 Place and Livability section, and it's also really strongly in the Year 9, I'm just trying to remember which section, the Year 9 tourism section on interconnections, particularly the impact of tourism on country and place. And that's been a really interesting topic to investigate and to present in a textbook. And I think you'll find some good Victorian examples that I've managed to find for that. The next thing I'm going to point out, which is connected, I guess, is there seems to be a greater, well, not doesn't seem to be, there is a much greater emphasis on the study of Australia. I know this seems an obvious thing. The non-geographers are out there are going, well, isn't that what you do anyway? But the geographers will now be nodding because they know that in the current curriculum, 1.0, there's a fair spread of the world you're expected to cover from Year 7 to Year 10. That's been narrowed down a lot. And there's a much greater emphasis on the study of Australia, and particularly in Year 9. And the example I've given there in the biomes and food security, this interesting new piece of content to look at, which is the sustainability of farming in Australia, which leads on to some pretty big questions about the way we use our land and the impacts of climate and the changing climate on the sustainability of farming in Australia. This is a big topic, and I think it's a much more interesting way of looking at food security in a country like Australia. That leads on to another big change, which is long overdue, I think, which is this much greater emphasis on the study of climate change. I wrote some material for GTAV last year about this. I think we can stop trying to convince kids that climate change is real. I think they're through that now, and I think most sensible thinking adults are through that as well. And now it's, rather than learning about how it's happening and why it's happening, it's more how it impacts our natural and cultural environment, and also how we can respond to that. And that's much stronger in Victorian Curriculum 2.0. And I think you'll enjoy looking at that, particularly this idea of embodied carbon. I spoke about that last week at another workshop. It's really quite heavy material where we have to look at the trade of carbon around the world, and of course Australia's role in that as the world's largest coal exporting country. So I think that's also given the geography the opportunity to go into more depth. And as Megan was saying, that's one of the things that I really have enjoyed with this new curriculum, the ability to really look at some meaty topics, sustainability of farming and the trading of coal around the world. These are big topics that kids are, I think, going to really enjoy digging into. The other couple of changes is that there's more flexibility in the case studies that you can choose. In the past, for instance, I've just been working with some Year 9 material on, Year 10 on the geographies of well-being, where it's all about a comparison of India and Australia. That's no longer the case. It's now Australia and any other country of your choosing. So there's more flexibility. There's an opportunity to explore those countries that are of greater interest to the students that you teach. And I can already see at my school the opportunity to make some changes there. And there's also some, I've got to say, some cool new stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's been taken out, which allows the greater depth, but there's a couple of new things coming that are coming in. And one of them is in Year 9 interconnections. And this was really fun to write, and I think it's going to be fun to teach as well. So I'm looking forward to this one next year. Is looking at how the spatial spread of things like music and fashion and entertainment. So you can look at things like Spotify. I've done a whole spread on Taylor Swift and her interaction with Spotify and how her music spreads. And I've made a comparison to the way, this is going to seem a bit weird when I say it, the way that music spreads is not dissimilar to the way pandemic spread. It tends to be one quick adopter and then it spreads from that. So that's been an interesting topic to look at. So I guess overall, I've got to say there's less content, which allows greater depth and more flexibility. And then some of the more specific things I've talked about there. I said that skills have become more explicit, and I guess not so much explicit, more logical into a learning sequence. And also there's a much greater emphasis on field work, where in the past it was mentioned at the start of the curriculum as an important part of, I think the words were, important part of geographic study, but now it's actually in the curriculum. From years 7 to 10, there seems to be the expectation that all students from year 7 to year 10 now use fieldwork as part of their collection of primary data. And the geographers out there are pumping the air because that's something we've been waiting for a long time. The other change I'll mention before I hand over to Megan and Kirk is that the geographic concepts, which a little like the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander material was sitting at the beginning of the curriculum, is now embedded in specific places within the curriculum. So it can no longer be ignored. So the curriculum says you will teach space, environment, interconnection when you are teaching year 7 place and livability. And you will look at interconnection and change when you're teaching landforms and landscapes. So that's a good change too, I think, because it was a little too easy, I think, just to gloss over that and leave it behind. So there's changes to content, there's changes to skills, and there's changes to concepts. And my general feeling about the changes is that I'm looking forward to them. I think many things that were in the curriculum that almost took too long to teach have gone, and some new, it just allowed greater depth and greater flexibility in the geography curriculum. Okay, I'll hand over now, I think, to Megan and Kirk to talk about changes to the history curriculum.
Thanks so much, Mark. So Kirk and I both wrote the Year 9 and 10 history sections of the textbooks. So we're going to sort of bounce off each other for this next little section. So in terms of history, I guess on the surface, geography looked quite similar, but under the surface, it was very different. History on the surface actually looks very different to start with. So I've got a bit of a model up here of what year 7 and 8 has looked like in the past in the orange, and the blue what it'll look like next year. So first thing you're probably noticing is that overview unit for year 7s and 8s, which is brand new, as well as, I guess, a bit more of an obvious indication of timeframes that we're looking at for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowledge and understandings unit. If I keep flicking through, I've got create a bit of a model for you in terms of, I guess, what might fit well into Year 7, and the Oxford textbooks actually mimic this. So in the past at Year 7, you probably did a unit on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, and then you had to do 2 other studies, one of them on a European or Mediterranean civilization and one on one from the Asia Pacific world. New curriculum, we're still doing an investigation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but it's a little bit more focused, I guess, in terms of that time frame. So you start at deep time and you come through until the modern era. And then for your investigation, they've actually reduced it. So instead of having to do 3 big units, you only have to pick 1 area study. So you can pick either Egypt, Greece, Rome, India, or China, not having to do 2 of them there. So I know for me, teaching Year 7 and 8, that was a sigh of relief for me because I knew it was less in there and I could focus a lot more on the content and having my students really enjoy it.
I know with, so I'm just going to jump in, with that Indigenous unit at the top, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, I know with that new time frame, it actually was a bit concerning for me and I when we first saw that it was deep time to the modern era. I mean, that's absolutely generations of time, decades of time. And so it was a bit concerning how we're going to fit all that in, but that actual modern era is referring to like perspective. So it's the perspective of how we're looking at the deep time in the modern era and how those histories and cultures preserved in modern times. So it isn't exactly like a timeline up to the modern era.
That's it. And I think that's really exciting as well, looking at how history is preserved and having the opportunity to really talk about that with those young levels is really special. You've got that unit as well, the overview one at the very start there. It's quite a, I guess, short in terms of descriptors, and they really fit into the different units. So it's almost like a bit of an introduction in there to each of them. At Year 8, we're seeing a few changes as well. So in the past, where we had to choose a European and Mediterranean world to study, we had to look at a discovery and conflict, and we had to have a look at the Asia Pacific. Again, that's been reduced down significantly. So we've gone from having 3 units that we need to study there to only 2. So they've merged together that expanding contacts and the European and Mediterranean world to the units. So again, it's that sigh of relief that we only have to have those 2 big units, which for many, I guess, fits into your sort of term structure in terms of studying history. So it's quite some exciting changes there. I think that it makes it a lot easier for us to teach content and teach all those extra things that we've really wanted to. And that's reflected in the textbook. You know, those things where you're like, oh, I wish I had more time to teach this. You can now because we've got that bit of extra time in there. So I guess here's a bit of an overview of the Year 7 and 8 stream and how that sort of works, the options that you've got in there. We've got one brand new one in there, which is the emergence of the modern world in Europe, which is quite exciting. And I thought what we might do next is a bit of a chat interaction here. So get your fingers ready to typing. And I'd love to hear what units you're actually really excited about teaching at Year 7 and 8. What ones popped up there that you were like, yes, I can't wait to teach that, or I'm going to rally to my learning leader to have that organised. So I'll pop them up on the screen so you can sort of see them, and then maybe jump in the chat and tell us which ones you're excited about teaching. I know certainly at our school, we've been teaching Egypt in the past, and we do China as well. You know, I'm looking forward to the opportunity of potentially doing Rome or Greece there as well. Because the follow through of the history in terms of context, that's something I'm pretty excited about. Year 7.
I know even at our school as well, Year 8, it always felt a bit tight trying to do medieval Europe, Japan and the Shoguns, but we also did Spanish conquest of the Americas, and it always felt like that Spanish conquest of the Americas was just a bit too tight, a bit too rushed. And so I think we've got an elective unit that we're thinking of running next year at our school where we can just do that unit. But again, it's not in a few weeks, but we can actually kind of flesh it out. So that might be something you're thinking about too. Oh, what about all these cool histories? But, you know, are they going to miss out? But it's more, maybe there's another opportunity for them to make an appearance. So we can see them coming through in the chat now. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. So Lara's got China and Greece. Oh, so much cool history in there that you can study with your kids. And Bryn's keen to teach the Vikings. I love teaching the Vikings as well.
Mick loves an overview. Very good.
I think those overviews are a really good opportunity to really, introduce the unit properly and I guess flesh out as you go through as well some of those units. So we've got Cameron as well, likely change to Rome at Year 7 and maybe sneak in some Vikings at Year 8. Absolutely.
Nice. So look, we might move on to year 9 and 10. It's obviously just good kind of why you've got all the options there on the screen to kind of jot them down, maybe what you're thinking. But I'm going to move on to year 9 and 10. And so very similar to what Megan was saying earlier, where when you look at the overview here, you can see that it's made up similarly with an overview at 9 and 10, and then all these investigations. I think something that was quite challenging when we were putting the textbook together is the fact that it is a strand of year 9 and 10 together. And so what you'll see as we go forth is some of the actual options when we go to, yeah, but how about year 9, how about year 10? You'll get actually a better choice about whether certain units can be in one or the other year level. So I'm going to explore those investigations and actually show you where they might fit in. I know it might look a bit busy going on here, but what's actually happening is blue is the change. So the orange that's like in the background, you can see that's the original Victorian Curriculum 1.0. So for example, at the top, you can see I've crossed out Industrial Revolution. That was in Victoria 1, and now that's gone. So that is, for example, in one of those overviews. So even in the new Oxford textbook, there is in an overview chapter. If you're already with Oxford, you might notice that they already exist, those overviews. So it still has some Industrial Revolution context for the colonisation unit, but now we don't have to teach it as a unit in itself. So again, I'm not sure about you, but for us, that was fantastic because it's great for context, but it was a bit of a long unit. So you can see I've got next to it EG Year 9. So we taught that in Year 9 and then went on to, it said, so the writing, the text there is Vic 1.0. It was Australia and Asia. Students investigate Australia and or Asia. Whereas that's been a change where what they've actually done is they've actually split up so it says Australia or Asia. What the new curriculum is going to be, and I'll outline it on the next slide, is that you need to do Asia, and then you get choice between either doing Australia or globalising world. So put those two dots together. So it's either that top bit, Australia, or the globalising world, which is a little bit lower down. You can see I put a little box around the Australias at war because that's what it's become. It's no longer World War I, World War II. It's Australia at war, and they've merged them both together. Meaning you have a bit of choice. You could either, because I mean, even we were a bit confronted with that when we were looking at the textbook about do we keep World War I in Year 9? Do we keep World War II in Year 10? Now, the answer is yes, that is what the textbook series is going to look like. However, what they'll talk about a little bit later in this Oxford presentation is that if you get the Year 9 textbook, the platform online, you'll have access to the World War II section even in Year 9. Because, for example, your school may wish to put them together and make that unit, Australia at War, just one unit that happens in, say, Year 9 or Year 10. Because they've been, like, I guess, compared in a sort of way, there are some new exercises that actually cater to that as well. So they compare the wars, they compare things like what's the warfare like, what's the consequences of each war. So there are some new chapters that actually do some of that comparison, which is great. And then obviously you've got that rights and freedoms unit in there too. I might move on to the next slide because they're just some of the changes, but you might actually be able to kind of see it fleshed out here. The red are suggestions. They're not obviously just prescribed like that. So you can see here that we've got that top one. You've got Australia, the investigation Australia. So you would choose as a school to do either that, which is the colonisation unit, or further down right at the bottom, the globalising world. So again, in terms of choice, for example, you might choose to do that colonisation unit in Year 9, and that would actually free you up in Year 10 because that rights and freedoms unit that might previously have been done in Year 10 would no longer be there. So from this, you might gather you'll either be able to choose to do 2 units in Year 9 and 3 in Year 10, or switch it and do 3 in Year 9 and 2 in Year 10 because of that choice between globalising world and Australia. In the middle, you can see I've got investigations Australia at war. That's World War I, World War II. At a school, we're probably going to separate it, as you can see I've done there, where World War I would remain in Year 9, World War II would remain in Year 10, but you've obviously got that choice too. And then you can see that there's now the investigation Asia. As a school, that's going to be new for us to see that you choose to do a study on either China, India, Japan, and then there's 2 new ones, both Indonesia and Vietnam. They all have the same time period, 1750 to the present. So there's quite a lot of history there. And then you can see that there is that Indigenous rights and freedoms unit that exists there as well, which might remain, if you're already doing it in Year 10, it would probably remain there. So just like what Megan did with Year 7 and 8, I'm going to come back to that slide, but same situation. Maybe put in the chat here what you're thinking. I'll leave that slide on the screen there, but what are you thinking? Do you want to stack Year 9? Do you want to stack Year 10? Do you want to split the world wars? What are you thinking?
I know some of those, the globalising world, really excite me, and they're definitely, I guess, going to be some of our electives at our school. The regional and global conflict, there's a couple of, that's a brand new one for the new curriculum. And the Oxford textbook, that's going to take the place of the Troubles, the Irish Troubles. There's some really interesting history there that you can really pull out. And the political crisis as well, that's the Vietnam War, which I think sets really kids up really well for BC history, particularly modern history in year 11. So yeah, there's some really good options there in terms of new curriculum.
I guess just as we're doing that too, one thing I didn't actually quite mention was the skills. So the skills does continue across. Obviously, there were skills in Victorian 1 and there are some in Victoria 2. There are actually 2 like new ones that have been self-titled. You can see them there at the top. There's historical questions and there's communicating. The communicating is actually quite consistent. It was obviously a new one in geography as well, where the communicating is for students to communicate their ideas. So their ability to evaluate, their ability to make a judgment call on things like that. That's what that communicating is. And then the historical questions at the top is their ability to ask questions of history. So they're not just, regurgitating information like knowledge only, but they're actually asking questions of that knowledge. And so again, both those 2 new skills have been incorporated to the new textbook.
Yeah. The other, I guess, key one with those is that in the old curriculum we had cause and effect, whereas now we have causes and consequences, which is almost mimicking the language of the BCE curriculum as well. So that's quite nice as well, that it's scaffolded down to those junior years. So by the time they get to VC, they're not surprised by these words. They've come up with them before and they've been confronted with them. So I think these changes are really good. It might look like 2 new skills and concepts as well. What they've actually done is, pulled them apart and made them into those extra ones by reducing from the others. So I think these are good changes as well that they made.
And thank you to Lara for commenting there. So yes, we're going to do the same thing. Year 9 World War 1, Year 10 World War 2. I mean, look, we teach an all-boys school and they just love the dramatic nature of the wars. And so that's why we kind of want to give it to them across both year levels and not just have it in one.
Yeah, I guess with the World War II unit as well, it's compulsory to teach about the Holocaust. So that almost makes its own little sub-unit in there that you've got at year 10. So spreading that across, year 9 and 10 gives you that option to have to spend a bit more time on the Holocaust and lead up to it and that sort of thing as well. I think it's really important. We might move on to having a bit of a chat about the economics and business and civics and citizenship units. We'll front foot it and say that this is not necessarily our area of expertise. We're history experts, but we're going to have a bit of a chat about what's, I guess, new in these curriculums. Most obvious thing, even from this slide here, is the economics and business skills section. So they've made those really clear in the brand new curriculum, which is fantastic. So you can see them here. So there's these 4 areas which are actually replicated in geography and history as well, those skills. So they're popping up in all different humanities units, which is really great for our students because they're having that repeat exposure over and over again for them.
And just as Megan said, they already existed, but it's more that they're just now explicitly stated. And so again, that the explicit nature of that is put in the textbook as well. And so again, it's really glad to see that that's been prioritised.
Yeah. And I think we see that as well in terms of the content. You can see the old and the grey here and the blue's got the new there as well. The new, it might look like it's less, but it's almost a consolidation of lots of those other dot points that they had in the previous curriculum. And they've really refined it and made it really specific for our students, which is great. Yeah. So we might flick forward to civics and citizenship, which again, we can see that skills stream in there as well, which is really great.
And so we've got, the knowledge, the content, just like it was in geography. It does look identical. When you look, there are some little changes between year levels more so. However, the main body remains the same. And the key changes, as Megan's been alluding to, is the skills, which again, consistent again, that communicating one being brand new for all 4 strands.
Yes, absolutely.
So look, to go where we go from here in terms of this Oxford presentation is looking at some of the challenges facing some of your schools. Before we talk about how Oxford's addressed each of them, it'd be nice to, I guess, reflect on them. So we've identified these 6 challenges that teachers face in just regular teaching, but also in teaching the curriculum. And so I guess it'd be really helpful because it really will direct where we kind of go to from here. If in the chat, you're welcome to actually say, is there 1 or 2 in particular here of these 6 challenges that you really struggle with? Or find more challenging than others in your teaching of the curriculum or as just a teacher?
I think it's really important to note as well, Kirk, Mark and I are all teachers as well. We've all been teaching today. We've all been in the classroom. And when we were coming up with this textbook and these challenges here, Oxford really listened to us as teachers, and that's how they know about these challenges. And I think that's so important for a publisher to really take on board the challenges we're facing in schools. and trying to address those as well in such a practical way. So I think it's really great.
Give you a moment, put that in the chat. It was already quite interesting. This is our third presentation, and in the first two, we had different challenges popping up as the priority. So again, it does kind of steer where we go to from here.
And if I could just point out in that challenge one, as well as teacher shortages and lack of time, is also the out of field teaching. The number of teachers who are not necessarily trained geographers, historians, or humanities teachers who find themselves in front of a class of excited and interested teenagers to teach those subjects. And so that tended to be a challenge that in both the other workshops was mentioned quite explicitly. So that's something we're prepared to, that Dorothy will talk about a little later on, how the new textbook supports those teachers in particular.
Lara's got down here challenge 1 and 4 here. I know the teacher shortages and the lack of time is such a huge thing. You know, it's something that we've faced at our school as well, and that aspect of out of field teachers as well. You know, there's so many resources, and they're going to show you in the second half. We won't have too many spoilers, but there's so many resources that are available online that if you're a learning area leader or a faculty head, there's so much stuff that you can pull on to give a brand new teacher, to give a graduate teacher, or to someone who's teaching out their field as well within the textbook, which is really great.
Well, look, if there's no more comments, happy to pass back to you, Dorothy, from here.
Okay, thank you very much. We've had a look. I'm going to be talking about now, thank you to the authors for the explanation of the curriculum changes. Paul and I are going to be talking to you now about the Oxford resources. When we go to publish new resources, we have to sit down and think, what are our key goals? It's very important, and these are the 4 that we've come up with. The Humanities series is purpose written to the Victorian Curriculum. We'd like to emphasise our partnership, our formal partnership with ClickView. We have key content videos in the platform, and we'll be having a look at that shortly, but we also have access to ClickView videos, which are also placed throughout the content in the platform. A lot of emphasis has been, a lot of time and emphasis has been spent on how we assist teachers with the differentiated instruction. And I think that will become obvious as well, along with our support for teachers for innovative features, lesson plans, live lesson plans, and later in the year, Oxford will be including AI student tutor called Finch. Now, this is a AI tutor that will be coming into the platform, but we'd like to reassure you that it is Oxford curated. So it's not jumping out into the World Wide Web. When the student asks questions, Finch will ask some more questions back and direct the student back to where they can find the knowledge. We also wanted to let you know, with the expansion of the First Nations content in the new curriculum, Oxford University Press has made sure that all of that content regarding First Nations has been edited and reviewed by First Nation educators and academics. And in that process, Oxford have also decided a great new initiative. I don't know that anyone else is doing this, a First Nations Advisory Board, in which First Nations people are considered in the planning and production of all of our content. That's primary and secondary and higher ed. This is a great initiative. So we wanted to reassure you that some teachers have expressed some nervousness about teaching content relating to First Nations. We wanted to reassure you that it has been edited and reviewed by First Nations people. And so you can feel confident that when you're presenting that content, you can present it confidently. Our ClickView connection, and again, 400 brand new key content videos. Keep in mind there'll be one video for every lesson in every book to cover every content description. And now I'm going to hand you over to Paul, who's going to give you a quick rundown of the digital platform.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. Yes, I will be very quick when I go through today. So just keep in mind that you'll get a recording of this session after today, so you'll be able to go back through this and our authors' talks as well. If you really would like to see it again, your dedicated Oxford sales consultant will be more than happy to come out to you or get onto Teams and show you through in a bit more detail. Plus, we'll also be following up and sending you a link so that you can access the digital samples that I'm going to show you today as well. So we'll just jump straight in. Okay. So for those of you that are familiar with Oxford Digital, you'll know that this is the library. When you come into Oxford Digital, you'll see in my library here that I have Oxford Humanities 7, 8 and 9 for the updated Victorian 2.0 curriculum editions. This is what you'll have access to once you get that sample link and be able to add them to your library. If you don't have an Oxford Digital library, that will prompt you to open up an account, which is free, doesn't cost anything. It's quite simple to do. And then you'll be able to add these to have a look for yourself. With the link, you can share it with your colleagues as well. Keep in mind that it's only 4 weeks that these links will be open. So if you need to show it or are not ready at this time to actually look at what is in here, then please just make sure you open it when you have an opportunity to show through. So what I'm going to do now is jump into Oxford Humanities 7. And the reason for this is where we have a module that has sample resources in it. Year 8 and 9 don't have the sample resources just yet, but you can get the idea and see everything that's in the content in all of these books. It's just Year 7 is where the sample resources are found. Again, those that are familiar with Oxford Digital, you'll see that it's moved away from that flat image-based e-reader to a more fully accessible, reflowable format with more integrated videos and activities at point of learning. So again, it's very similar, but it's different as well. So you can see on the left here, I can navigate to the course, and I'll come back to this in a minute to show you the aspects of how to actually access and look through the modules. The resources, you can now do a few different things. You can search for the resources here with the search. You can use these tabs and links at the top here. You can use the filters to use the drop down and find specific resources aligned with particular modules and lessons, and even the resource types and subtypes that are here as well. While I'm here is very similar to what's available in Oxford Digital now is you can assign work. But if I click on these 3 dots next to a resource, you'll notice that not only can I assign, but I can favorite these resources that will then sit at the top of the page for me. And I can also copy links now as well, which you haven't been able to do in the past. So you can embed in emails, in your planning, in your LMS as well. It's quite simple and easy to assign. I just click assign. I then click start and end date. I won't click an end date here. I then click my students. This. And then once I click my students, I can then assign the work to them as well. Once I've assigned work, I can then come here and look at my classes. And you'll see that the work that I have assigned is referenced here. And it will sit here until I get rid of it. So I can track what I've assigned to my students. I can also track who has and hasn't completed work. I can click on the drop down here to see which resources I have assigned, which students I've assigned it to, any notes that I've included, because you can include email notification when you're assigning this work. So when your students log in, they'll get a notification if you assign anything. They'll get emails if you do that way as well. So they can then use and do the assigned work that you've set them, whether it's watching videos or quick quizzes or differentiation tasks. Their scope and how you use it inside and outside the classroom, before and after lessons, is really up to you. The one thing that is new for those that are familiar with assigned work, you'll see that we have this in the Oxford Digital at the moment, is you can now edit the start and end dates, which you weren't able to do in the past. The other component here is the reports, which if I click on this class, and this is the sample that you will have access to. It's been all the student data has been filled in here so that you can see how it works just by clicking and working through it. So you can click on here, you can see that same class that I'm showing you now. Anything that students complete digitally inside Oxford Digital will feed back into this report for teachers. So yes, a lot of the quizzes, the check your learning questions, which are at the end of the modules, haven't been able to complete those fully digitally in the past. It's just been pen and paper really with the answers supplied, but now you have the option to do that. So answering those questions digitally, the quizzes, they feed back into this report. So generally summative assessment at the end of these lessons, but now it becomes more formative data as well when it's in here. So I can look, for example, at the sequence this events in ancient Egypt. I can go through and track. I can click on the percentage and see where my students have gone wrong in each question, and I can then use this information as more actionable data and informs my teaching. I can even compare responses now across a class. So using this matrix here, I can see that the question 4 was tricky for most of my students. So I could go in there and I can actually see what's tripping them up. And what I can do is use some of the functionality inside Oxford Digital to go back and attend to this. So we'll go back and have a look at the module itself now. I'm just going to go into 10.2. So this is the lesson. You'll see that there's lesson plans here. I have the option now to have slides that I can navigate. We're using the next and previous. I can also click on a single page and just scroll through the entire lesson this way as well. The lesson plans, I can click on these and it will give me everything that I need in relation to this lesson. So as Mark was talking about before, Kirk and Megan, that there is a lot of resources in here, and it's to support not only those teachers that are humanities trained, but those that aren't as well. So we're very make sure we're very aware of this. So you'll see it's a one-stop shop. We come to the lesson as a teacher, whatever level of experience that you have. You get a lesson overview, which is referenced in our modules. You get the learning intentions and success criteria related to this particular lesson, what curriculum links, what is actually being covered here, advice for teaching the lesson, so full support here, differentiation opportunities as well. And then you have these different activities that are incorporated. So starter activities, classroom activities that you can incorporate into your lessons as well. You may have seen in the navigation that there is also an option now for a live lesson. This is part of our premium option for what we offer for Oxford Digital. There's 2 options. You can have an essential digital or a premium digital option. And Dorothy's going to talk about the pricing a little bit later on. So what I can do when I have premium options is that student AI tutor that Dorothy was mentioning before, the AI Finch, will be embedded as part of the Oxford Digital Premium Edition. And that is, as Dorothy said, curated for this particular program and for this particular product. So it's not just a bot that's in the middle of the product. It will be there for students to assist them if they have questions, if they need to have questions asked differently, if they're having trouble with something specific, it will prompt them and allow them to ask those questions of the AI to assist them with answering, not giving them the answer itself. With starting the live lesson, it's quite simple, and I'll show you this now. I just click on my class and click Start Live Lesson. It opens up in a new tab, which allows me as a teacher to jump back and forth from the lesson plan if I need that support while teaching. If I go to the live lesson, I can bring all of my students into this live lesson, and that's what it's designed to do, is remove all that digital noise. It's to allow you to track your students and bring them into that digital format, and you not have to go and look at every single screen. You know if they're in here, and you can then project, you can talk to this, you can teach to it. If I go to different activities like the starter activity, for the essential digital, you only have the starter activity in your lesson plan, but as part of the premium, you can access this and decide to unlock it and actually build it into your lesson plans as well. So with the lesson plans as part of the premium, you'll be able to curate those and make them your own and build whatever resources that are in there into your actual lesson as part of the live lesson too. So you'll see the classroom activities that are here as well. Might be things in the introduction where the key content videos are. I can quickly assign while I'm in a live lesson. So students, it might be I want them to pop up and just watch it straight away. It might be the Explore It, the virtual field trip that I want them to do. I can roll call at any time as well to bring students in. And then when I've finished and want to end the live lesson, I just click End Live Lesson. I can then assign resources that are inside this for home study activities, or if we miss something, if we ran out of time, I can even assign work for the next lesson so we get some pre-work done prior to coming to this. And again, once I assign that, the students will get access to it. So this is all part of the premium, and that is $10 extra, as Dorothy will mention a little bit later on as well. Includes the AI Finch, the live lessons, and you'll also have access to the Oxford Dictionary digitally as well. So when we're back in the essential here, so you can see I'm still in the lesson plan. I can see everything that is here. I can navigate again to the lesson overview, and this is exactly what's in the module. So it references the learning intentions and success criteria. The key content videos are here, which Dorothy mentioned we've developed in relationship with ClickView. So these have been developed specifically for this particular product. It relates to all the key content that is in this particular lesson, and they're there to support your students and for your teaching as well. These digital quizzes are still available, and you'll see they're quite engaging. They're quite easy for students to access as well. So you'll come across, close activities, drag and drop interface, multiple choice, all related to the content, more drag and drop, true and false. And when I get to the end as a student, I just click review and finish once I've answered all the questions. And your student will get a mark here automatically because these are auto mark. So you as a teacher don't have to mark them. But as I showed you before with the reports, all that data feeds back into here. So you can then use that as that formative assessment to see where your student's knowledge is at. Scope to this as well. You can use these in the class. You can use them at home. You can use it as pre-work or post-work. Again, the scope is endless. As I move through, you'll see, again, at point of learning, these are embedded, all of these activities. And again, they're referenced inside the book as well. So it really complements working with that print and the digital at the same time as well. Moving through to the check your learning questions, which is something quite different to the current edition, is I can now do these digitally. So these are the questions that are in the book for that consolidation at the end of each of the lesson. But in the past, I was only able to do them as pen and paper. Now they're embedded here. Your students can answer them digitally if you'd like to do so, and it feeds back into that report. You can mark and send back their results afterwards as well. Some of the other things that are there to, I suppose, help differentiate, you'll come across differentiation tasks when we're looking at those specific spreads that are aligned with the concepts and skills, which are embedded in each of the modules of part of the Humanities for Oxford and the updated editions. You'll also see some more sort of accessibility functionality with things like making notes in here. So if I go again to the introduction, I have the option as a teacher to highlight specific text. We know teachers like to curate specific parts of text, or you might, again, have students answering quizzes and they need to go back to a certain part of the text. Again, utilizing this particular resource and functionality, there's a lot of scope to it. But if I highlight text, I can give it a color. I can add a note to this. Please read. I can then click add note, and then this note will sit in the notes section. And if I click on it, it will sit here. I have the 3 dots again, and I have the opportunity again to share it with my students. So I can assign that, and they open it up. They click on it. It brings them directly to the page and what I've highlighted. And it might be, read this again and have a go at the quiz. So again, the scope and functionality here is really up to you as a teacher. The other thing you may have noticed at the bottom is the read to me. So I can click read to me and it will read me the whole page. I can also highlight specific text, and then click the read to me button, click play, and this will read to me as well. Sorry, it might not be working because I'm sharing through the webinar platform, but you'll be able to give this a go yourself. You can use male and female voices. You can up and down the speed as well. And this is great for those low literacy students that are unengaged in your classroom, that are having trouble with taking the off the page what they need to know. You have the opportunity here to actually use that particular functionality to engage them. Use the videos to engage them. Use those digital quizzes to engage them and to help them with that comprehension and understanding as part of the teaching as well. So that's everything from me. I will hand you back to Dorothy now. Again, I know it's been a very quick snapshot, so thank you very much. If you would like to hear more, speak to your sales consultant. We'll be reaching out. You'll also, as I mentioned, receive that sample link so you can go and have a look for yourself, plus the recording of today so you can come back and have a look at this as well. So thank you. Thanks, Dorothy.
Thanks very much, Paul. I hope that was helpful. We just wanted to have a quick overview of the resources and to show you how we've been linking them with some of the challenges. So in regard to teacher shortages, detailed lesson plans and module plans, and in far as the teaching skills, so potentially teachers that are teaching outside their scope. We've got still access to the toolkit modules. These are very important, and the skills practice. Mixed ability classrooms. So the key content video, you can see that there's a video there for all of the modules and all of the lessons. And on top of that, there's access to the click view videos. We've got short auto-mark quizzes for each lesson, question sets, and differentiation worksheets. So these fall into 3 general categories. Potentially, you'll have a worksheet to support. Some students, you'll have a worksheet you could assign to consolidate, which would be the middle of the group, and worksheets to extend. And also extension questions in the skill and context activities. In the publication of these new resources, Oxford have aimed to ensure that it's a complete resource package. So all of your teachers would get access to all year levels, even if they're just teaching 1 year level, so they can see right across the spectrum where content is sitting. And also a reminder that with the teaching of the strands and the bands, we're going to be, say, for example, you use Oxford resources, your year 7s will have access to year 7 and 8 content, and year 8 will have access to year 8 and year 7, and similarly for 9 and 10. So that is a year 9 student, whether they purchase digital only or digital and print, they will have access to year 10 as well, and the year 10s vice versa. Our strong emphasis and the work gone into making sure that you have confidence teaching the First Nations content and making sure that the content has been treated respectfully, and a reminder that it's been reviewed by First Nations reviewers. The key content videos, the engaging, easy to use print and digital resources, and there's work, as there was in previous editions, for STEM and STEM projects. Okay, we'll move on quickly to the purchasing options. So if you're going digital only, Essential is $49.95, Premium $59.95. Key differences, Premium offers access to the dictionary, access to the AI Finch student tutor, and the live lessons. And this can be very, very helpful, particularly if you have high uptake. Digital and print, $69.95. $79.95 for premium. But keep in mind, Year 7 student, for example, gets access to Year 7 and 8 content. Availability. Well, as we could see in Paul's library, Year 7, 8 and 9 are available to view for you. All the content in the books is there. Year 10 will be added very, very soon. The print books will be available throughout Term 3. So Year 7 printed books, finished books, will be available at the end of July, and you'll be receiving a copy of that for attending the workshop. And that should be coming to you as soon as the holidays, so the beginning of Term 3. The digital support, this will continue to be built. We had a look at an example of the teacher support in the Year 7 book, and you will notice if you get online access that this will continue to build, but all the teacher support material will be finalised by the 15th of December. And today, on the right-hand side of the screen at the top, you'll see handouts. You'll be able to view some of this material, and of course you'll be sent access to the digital and a copy of the slides. And that's pretty much it for today, and we hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions you'd like to ask the authors or any of us at Oxford, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll be getting back to you.
Yeah, it looks like we don't have any questions. We do have a lovely comment from Cameron. Thank you.
Right.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And yeah, we'll be in touch with the recording soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our authors, and thank you, Paul.